Our presenter today is Sherry Edwards, and she has more than 15 years of experience in providing training for private, nonprofit, and public organizations. She's the owner of the Resource Maximizer, a private consulting company since 1997, offering career coaching and training for individuals and customized training and workshops for businesses. Sherry provides one-on-one coaching, group workshops, and seminars. Her personalized service facilitates employees in their search for the right job and supports companies in their effort to attract and retain motivated employees who will be responsive to their customers' needs. As you heard, I will turn it over to Sherry Edwards in a few minutes. Just one housekeeping note that we have muted all lines. To unmute your line, if you want to ask a simple question, just hit *6. Sherry, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. We have a fairly small group today, so we're going to work with a couple of different ways of communicating. Right now, I would ask that all of you close other programs that are running on your desktop. We've muted your phone lines, and again, as Daryl said, if you have a quick question, it's fine to unmute your phone line by hitting *6. Our preferred method would be for you to use the chat feature so one of the three of us can respond to your question that way. We have limited time to get all the information out, but I will be staying on the line an extra 10 minutes or so after the presentation for longer questions, so please keep that in mind. So today what we're going to cover is the value of a group support group, how to define the group's goals, developing a group structure, using different methods for sharing information. The purpose of it, of course, is to develop relationships, so we'll talk about developing relationships and how to get optimal results. Off we go. The first thing to keep in mind, if there's a different outcome that you're interested in achieving, something needs to change. So, Daryl, I think we want to ask some background about some of the audience here. Do we have a poll you can send out?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the first one. I kind of forgot to cue you there. So if you'll take a look at there's a poll that should be showing up on your screen right now. It's pretty simple, yes or no question. We want to know if you've previously participated in an employment support group, just to get an idea of how much each of you may have had experience with that.
Yeah, you can just hit.
It's frozen.
Excuse me?
It's frozen. The poll we cannot hit. Okay, let's see here.
So,
yeah.
Here we go. Now.
Oh, okay. There we go. We'll just take a minute and let everybody respond. I know we had some newcomers. Okay, again, the poll on your screen is just to find out if you have previously participated in an employment support group. Please let us know, and if not, please let us know that so I have a sense of where to begin with this. Okay, Daryl, let's just go ahead and leave it at that. We'll assume that more than half of you have not participated in an employment support group. So we'll start with some of the basics today. Again, one of the basic concepts is doing whatever you've been doing is not going to produce new results, so we need to try something else. So let's find this out. For those of you that actually have participated in an employment support group, let's find out from you how that's worked for you. Whoops. So, Daryl, if you'll go ahead with the second poll, we'd like to get some feedback from you.
Bear with me 2 seconds here.
Okay.
For some reason, this does not want to cooperate.
There we go.
There you go.
So So again, the question is, if you've participated in a support group in the past, would you have wanted to improve your experience with the group or increase the group's results? Yes or no? Okay. So out of this poll, we're seeing that about the same number are responding. Someone did say that they would not have wanted to improve their experience. So I'm glad to hear that you had a wonderful experience with your support group. And perhaps at the end of the presentation, if there's more that you can add, we can add that to the presentation. So why do we do this? Why do we get a support group together to begin with? Well, the first reason is to get support, of course. Many of you may be looking for work right now. Some of you may be on contracts that are about to expire. It's very helpful to get support from others who have been experiencing the same dynamics. We also build friendships, and there's an opportunity for personal development through other members of a support group. The personal development, of course, can lead to career growth, and by belonging to a support group with people that have common interests, there might be an opportunity for you to learn from others who have already progressed in their careers to know what exactly you should be working on to move forward in your career. So to get started, it's helpful to take a poll of people that you think might be interested in participating. Rather than making an assumption, let's send out some type of survey to folks to learn who else shares your interests and needs. The next part of that, of course, is to learn if they are willing to commit to a specific and regular meeting time. One of the elements that I've observed over the years is that often the drop-in type of support groups don't last. They're not sustainable, and it's because people are not committed to that specific time and often do not schedule in when attendance is required, and so their attendance is spotty. One of my recommendations is when you're setting this up is to make sure that people are willing to commit over the long haul, or you're likely to be in that same boat. The other element that's important is to make sure that you all agree on the goal of the group. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else. I've participated in groups that turn out to be a session for venting. Although that might feel better for some participants, it often doesn't lead anywhere, and it's very difficult for people to get value if we don't have enough time to get to solutions. So my recommendation is that you agree on mutual goals, that you discuss what is it you want to accomplish, and don't assume that everyone has the same agenda. Make sure that you set clear expectations to avoid potential conflicts. And that means coming up with some sort of code or ground rules. The element surrounding the ground rules is to encourage productive behavior. We want people to be reliable, responsive. We want to make sure that we have set up parameters for communication, and that people are honest about what it is they're presenting about their circumstances. Some background that might be helpful for those of you that are just coming on. I have facilitated a networking group that is focused around employment issues, and we're going on, I think, our 13th year. And we started with 5 people, grew it immediately and doubled it the first year, but over the years, I still have 3 of those original 5 people in the group, and here we are 13 years later. Over time, it's grown to be 70 members. And because of the size of the group, we started establishing ground rules early on, and every year we have a meeting to either change or edit those, as well as agree on what we want to get out of each and every meeting throughout the year. Now, what we've learned is by having ground rules, we have have fewer conflicts, fewer miscommunications. Everybody understands exactly what is expected of them. The overall outcome is that more people benefit because we spend all of our time helping each other instead of trying to sort out miscommunications. So, Daryl, I think we have another poll at this point. Are you able to get that? There you go. And I want to find out from folks, if you've not previously joined a support group, we'd like to learn why not. Is it because you weren't sure what you could add to the group, or if you weren't sure how the group could help you, or your anticipation was that people would just be complaining and you didn't want to hear others complain? Okay. Sure, we'd like to get some feedback from some of the other folks that are listening today. So if you could, please take a look at your screen, and if you could respond to the poll, it would be really helpful. There you go. Got a couple more coming in. Okay. It looks like we're kind of split between you weren't sure how the group could help and also that you didn't want to hear others' complaints. And I certainly can understand that. Again, the establishment of ground rules keeps the focus on moving forward and remaining productive. So when you're first starting a group, that's really the best time to begin that process. Again, if there are only a few members, it may not be complete until you've really established yourselves and learned what and how you can do for each other. And that's going to take a number of meetings. One of the ways that you can learn more about each other faster and also to get a better sense of what you can add as value is by sharing information. The group itself would be a forum for sharing useful information and learning more about what people are doing to develop their careers, enhance their job search if they're currently unemployed, or developing their skills. It's also a place to start conversations. So again, if you have ground rules that define how those conversations begin, then we can include in that the need to stay on task and look for solutions from people. One of the ways to typically build that trust that we were talking about and get more help is to become visible by contributing. It means that if you have read an article recently that was of value to you, it might be of value to others in the group, that's something that you can post and share with the group. And again, that visibility gives people a sense that you can be relied on for adding value. It's really important as you're building your group to pay attention to other people's needs. I think during periods of unemployment, it's very difficult to see daylight. Sometimes it's hard for us to look up over our own kind of troubles or situation and pay attention to others, but the key to networking is really making sure that we're aware of what other people need and what other people could benefit from. And one way of learning that is by doing some research on folks or also communicating more. And the one thing that's changed since my group began is we started long before LinkedIn or any social networking sites existed. We exchanged a one-page data sheet that indicates what each member's current experience is, what their goals are. We do include information that we would not put on a public place such as LinkedIn or Facebook in regard to personal goals, but it gives each and every member a sense of how they can help each other. The beauty now that we have all these social networking sites is that we can share information much more quickly, and we have access to their databases to use, which allows us to communicate more freely rather than only using direct email. I'm going to caution you. We had a discussion about this the other night. It's helpful to be able to use LinkedIn because you can connect with people and access them quickly and easily, share links to news articles or links to white papers, whatever it might be that you'd like to share. Longer conversations, however, are best done directly with folks through their email box. Many people do not check LinkedIn every day or every hour, and we've still got to recognize that we've got to select the appropriate mediums for communication. So we've got to choose whether we're going to communicate through a social networking site where others can read it and share, or whether we're going to communicate directly by email, or perhaps the information is urgent, we want to text. In any case, it's very important not to send lengthy information by text, because it may get lost in the shovel. Now, let me just get a poll, and if you will look at the top of your screen, there's a little guy with his hand up here. If I could just get a quick answer from those of you who are able to, please raise your hand if you're currently using any of the social networking sites you see on your screen right now. Okay, so it looks like not all of you have yet been introduced to LinkedIn or Facebook, etc. I'm going to define a little bit of the difference. Facebook tends to be more of non-professional or casual kind of way to communicate with people. It's a place where you can communicate with friends and getting back in touch with people. Professionally, I believe LinkedIn is the most well-known and appreciated, and it's just an incredible database. My advice is when you're discussing how to use LinkedIn, and I can only take just a minute at this point, but when you're discussing how to use LinkedIn in your job search, it's more for information. So I'm going to give you some ideas here. It's a way to start discussions with people because there are a number of different groups by topic and then special interest groups within those topics. So you can discuss ways of learning information. You can also share links to articles or current events. You can share profile information if you're wanting to introduce people to others. It's a way of learning about other members' backgrounds. Now, the benefit to you if you're forming a support group is to quickly learn everyone's background and get a sense of where they've been, what they've done, and who they know. Now, the important thing to remember in developing a support group is if you go into it expecting to get a job lead, you're likely to come out empty-handed. If you go into the process expecting to develop a relationship and are willing to contribute to it, that you're likely to be successful with. Ultimately, it is that relationship that actually will lead you to a job lead. So the key about developing that relationship is by investing some time in learning about others, and again, looking for background information to learn where they've worked, what tools they've used, where people they've worked with have migrated. You can also research information about companies on LinkedIn to get a sense of what kinds of people work there, what typically are their backgrounds, and you can learn about relevant skills. So when we talk about using LinkedIn in connection with an employment support group, again, the fact that the database is already there means there's less to have to reinvent. And over time, my group has a private group on LinkedIn, so we communicate through that means as well as individual email through our own group process. The benefit, again, to having both of them is that when we find articles online, it's much quicker to hit a LinkedIn icon to be able to share with our group than try to figure out how to send it to a number of individuals. So again, it's a benefit to encourage people to connect on LinkedIn so that you can take advantage of that database. So when we're looking forward to developing and expanding our group, we need to reach out. We identify individuals that will be able to help us by providing more information about our industry or particular organizations we're interested in. And again, how we can do that easily and quickly is by using LinkedIn. By learning what people's backgrounds are, we can then put together better questions to ask other members. Excuse me just a minute. Excuse me, thank you. We need to get to know the members. And again, why we set up the ground rules and encourage specific and regular attendance is so that you can learn more about one another. We can identify similar professionals with connections to our line of work and get a better sense of, again, how we can help one another. We can learn more about the companies that group members have worked for if, in fact, we have those companies on our targeted list. We're going to develop rapport with those folks by asking questions. The key to effective networking is in preparing the questions you ask as opposed to imagining that you have to carry the conversation by talking. Typically, a good set of questions with a group of strangers is going to draw out more information than if you worry so much about what it is you're presenting. We can learn more about the work people are currently engaged in if they are currently working. We can learn more about their interests. We can ask them about other organizations they're involved with, and we need to listen to their answers. Inside of some of the responses that we'll be getting from people, we'll be hearing opportunities for contribution. In other words, if we listen for challenges or problems, that's our cue that there might be something to help with. Now, I'm going to ask again for some feedback from all of you. How many of you have been conducting a job search and tend to focus around asking people if they know about job openings? Please raise your hand if that's what you've been doing. Okay. Uh-oh. Well, a couple of you have responded yes. I'm going to tell you, one of the inherent problems with asking about a job opening means it's probably posted already and you're immediately competing with a gazillion people. If you take a different tack to this and start asking people what they're working on and what their challenges are, you might actually uncover opportunities for you to contribute, whether it's as a contracted contributor or a full-time employee. There is the opportunity for you to contribute to the solution if you listen carefully for what specifically is needed. What that means is they may not even know that they have a need, may not have posted it, might not have even defined it. And if you listen carefully, you could be in on defining what that actual need is and be the potential solution. I mentioned earlier I have in my networking group of 70 people. Right now there are only 6 people that are unemployed. And typically the way that we help each other is by sharing information about what's going on within the organizations that those that are working are already affiliated with. It means we start learning about opportunity months, perhaps months ahead of what the general public does. So even if a position actually ultimately gets posted, by learning more about the culture of the organization, by learning more about what the specific need is, whomever actually responds to that posting at a later date is going to have a heads up in the interview. If not, a referral directly that's going to prompt them to be put in ahead of the pack. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients who's no longer participating in the group contacted me just a week ago and advised me of an upcoming need in her organization. And it happens to be a public organization where postings are required. We know that that isn't always adhered to, and this is a great example because inside, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, because inside of 2 weeks, I presented her with introductions to people who started out with the idea of doing an informational interview with her to learn more about the organization. And one of them met with her to learn more about the organization, and inside of that conversation, it turned into, gosh, I want you to meet my boss. And my other client went and met the first client's boss and was offered a position that day on the spot. So my point to this is, if we're listening carefully to things, we can learn about those kinds of leads directly and follow through. It allows you to hear opportunities in areas you also hadn't yet considered. Again, if you're only looking at postings, you've got a very narrow pipeline going on. If you're expanding that and listening for opportunity, you may be able to create your own. I'm going to expand this conversation just a little bit to show you some statistics, and that is, many of you may have heard of the hidden job market in the past, and oddly, this percentage does not change over the years, even though the market does. 85% of all available positions at any given time are filled without publication or announcement. So the example that I just shared with you, again, a person not only was offered the position, it never got posted. It may get posted in a month, and we all know it's filled. She's already started working. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about hidden job market. There was an argument recently that some recruiters were saying, well, there is no such thing as a hidden job market with online presences for companies where they're posting everything. Well, we're not talking about postings. We're talking about the positions that never, ever reach that point, or we learn about it so long before a posting that nobody else knows about it. And the reason they're getting filled is because employers would rather interview someone that has been referred by a trusted employee who already knows what it takes to be successful at that organization, with the understanding, of course, and assumption that no employee is going to recommend somebody who's not going to make them look good. So the key is there are a variety of ways to get to know people, but through an employment support group, the likelihood that you're going to know people better and more deeply is greater. And I caution you, I mentioned the use of LinkedIn because it's a terrific database and you can share information. Connecting with 8,000 people does not mean you have relationships with them, nor does it mean they're going to be comfortable referring you. And one of the downsides that I've witnessed over the past few years with LinkedIn is people seem to have the notion that if they're connected to 8,000 people, they're going to get a job. Well, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine being able to know 8,000 people at one time and actually be able to manage that. I know many hundreds of people, and managing that takes a lot of time. It requires follow-up and reaching out. In fact, there's someone on our webinar today I haven't spoken to for many, many months. I was very glad to see his name in here. And I've said hello, and he's not responded yet. That's how busy we are that we're overlooking some of the emails we get from people and some of the opportunities to dig deeper. I will tell you that meeting someone in person is going to sustain a relationship much longer over simply trying to communicate online. So I strongly advise you to make sure that your meetings are in person as opposed to, or at least a balance of virtual meetings versus in person, so that people really get a sense of each other. It's only when people feel comfortable that they actually trust and know someone that they're going to make that referral and it's going to mean something to an employer. And again, it's more than a numbers game. It's not what you, and it's also not what you know, but whom you know, but they need to know what you know. And if you're just connected to a bunch of people and they really don't know you or know what your the benefits of hiring you would be, then they're really not in a position to refer you. So once again, with your support group, there's that stronger likelihood you're going to get to know each other at a deeper level. And additionally, learn enough about one another that if you receive a lead for something that you're not qualified for, you may know someone well enough to be able to recommend them instead. And, you know, how many of you have heard, you know, the phrase "pay it forward"? Raise your hands. I'm surprised. For those of you that haven't heard "pay it forward," it's a concept that many of us have adhered to, which is I'm going to do something helpful now because over time, in the long run, it's going to benefit others in the future. And it means that I may not see a direct response at this time, but by contributing at this point now, somebody will at some point, and certainly I might from all of that over time in the long run. So when we look at how well do we get to know people and how much are we helping them, by being able to turn over a lead to someone that doesn't fit us but might fit them is something that will benefit you down the road. We don't know how, but it will likely to show up. We want to earn referrals from others, and to do that, we need to be willing to contribute. Networking is not a passive sport. It is something that people need to be engaged with. Support is also not accomplished if players are passive. Each and every person needs to contribute. And that's why I'm going to go back to having the code of conduct or your ground rules so that everybody understands what is expected and not just one or two people are relied upon to keep the group moving forward. Get to know people before you ask for something. So even though you can look at their backgrounds on LinkedIn and learn more by reading, it's important to get to know them personally and build that trust before you're actually asking for something from someone. It builds trust. And again, I'm going to suggest that by contributing prior to asking, by reaching out and giving people information that would be helpful, you're much more likely to establish that trust, which then in turn will mean that people are much more likely to help you. So let's talk about some other elements that are important to address as far as networking etiquette. Again, we want to share the load. We want to make sure that everybody's contributing, so there's an etiquette to this. Some of you indicated that one of your reasons for not belonging to a support group in the past is that you didn't want to hear people complain. Let's find out again, a raise of hands, how many of you have been to a support group in the past or have the impression that people sit around and complain? Please raise your hands. Use the little guy at the top of your screen. Okay. I would agree with you that that was my impression and why I was reluctant to even start one. Right off the bat, my framework was this is not going to be a complaint session. Nobody's allowed to just dump without helping contribute to a solution. So it's not that we don't want to share pitfalls, but we all want to be focused on moving forward and getting to solutions for some of the challenges people experience. In that, it's really important not to be giving more information than is needed. Oftentimes, people will go on and on and on and on about all the bad things that have happened, and I just watch people's eyes roll back up into their heads, or people physically show signs of shutting down because they don't want to hear it. So please, 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 share only information that can be used to help you, not hurt you if it's misinterpreted. Again, avoid saying things that will be left to interpretation. If all you talk about is your boss who's a creep, or the how you were mistreated by an agency and all the bad things that ever happened to you, I'm going to guarantee you that's the reputation that you're going to establish, and people are going to be very reluctant to help you in the future. Stay focused on moving forward. Avoid commiserating about your unemployment woes. Let's talk about what people have done, what has worked, what could be done, and who they could meet, things that will move you forward. Let's talk about now what you can expect to gain from the group. And again, we talked about using LinkedIn. One of the, I think, common misnomers here is that people think, oh, I see a job posting with XYZ company. I'm going to go to LinkedIn and see who works there and see if they can introduce me. Well, I'm going to promise you, if you wait for a posting and you wait to ask people for an introduction and they're people that you don't know, it's way too far down the road, and there's really nothing beneficial that's going to be gained from that. If you establish targets to begin with and know the organizations you're most likely to be interested in, then reach out through LinkedIn and your group and start researching information about that organization long before anything formal has been posted. You're much more ahead of the game and much more likely to be in a position that someone feels comfortable introducing you to a hiring manager or to someone that might be able to shed some light later. One of the pieces of advice that I give my personal clients, consulting clients, as well as every group member is use the information you have in the databases, either through LinkedIn or through our group, to get to know where people have worked and where they're looking so that you can share information long before something's posted. You can gain information through a meeting about something specific as opposed to, you can expect to have a meeting with someone to discuss something specific. Again, setting up some parameters in advance for the group to know what you'd like to discuss, or by simply attending enough meetings that you get a sense of what others have to contribute. You can ask for that additional meeting outside of your regular meeting time to learn something more or learn deeper information about a topic that you may not have time to cover at a meeting. You can get feedback from people. How are you being perceived right now? What is their impression of you in regard to your employability, your communication skills, your image? Should be a very safe environment for you to ask these tough questions so that you can either fix, repair, or build on things prior to going into an interview with an employer. You can ask opinions of some of your group members about a course of action if you're unsure. It's great to ask a larger body about their experiences with certain situations and get their ideas about moving forward before you take a course of action that may end up shooting you in the foot later. Again, I said earlier, if you go into this only expecting leads, you're not likely to get much out of it. If you go into this to build relationships, learn about your field, learn about ways that you can improve yourself, and develop trust, then you're much more likely to get leads for employment out of the group. You can also get information to determine if a position or an organization is a good fit for you. Now, here's an interesting point. If you've currently been involved with a passive search, which means you're only looking for posted positions, now I'll use Craigslist as an example. There's very limited information on Craigslist. There's not much that you learn about an organization or even about any given position. It means that you're at a disadvantage when you apply for that posting. You're at a greater disadvantage when someone calls you because you really aren't prepared all the way around to have a meaningful conversation. So by starting out with targets to learn more about organizations in advance, or to learn more about what might be needed in a particular role in a company, You'll have a better sense of whether that's a good fit for you and whether you should apply or what you need to focus on when you do apply and you're ultimately called. Again, by learning more about your industry or the organization, a specific organization, you're going to have a heads up on upcoming needs that may not yet be posted. What we're looking for inside of the support group is to find out things that may not have been published or you may not have been aware of, as opposed to looking for things that everybody can find. How do we get the most from this group? Well, some of you, I was surprised, indicated that they didn't expect to get more out of their group. I would hope that even if you do currently belong to a support group, you're always looking for ways to add value. I know that we review our group code annually and get input from people to see if there are things that we need to change about our structure. We also have a planning meeting every year to determine the topics we're going to discuss at our meetings throughout the next coming year. And at each of those meetings, we gain information to help us get the most out of the group. So inside of this, it means that everyone needs to articulate their goals clearly when setting up the group. It means that as you participate, you're very clear with others about what your particular goals are. Take notes about others. Pay attention so that you are able to stay in touch with people and help them with what their goals are. Another way to get more out of the group is to research the people that will be attending and prepare prepare questions before attending meetings. Get a sense of what you expect to get out of each meeting prior to showing up for that meeting. That takes time. You need to schedule these activities in and include time to organize, update, review, and evaluate all the information you get from various group members. Attending a meeting on the fly with little preparation means you're much less likely to get information out of it. So the first approach would be to make sure you're scheduling in time to do it, that you're planning time to follow up with people after you've been to a meeting. Again, I stress preparation. It's important to plan ahead for meetings and conversations and also plan that time for follow-up. Many of you indicated that belonging to a group might have been a little scary, and I think that's because some people feel shy or might be lacking in confidence because they're currently unemployed. I think this is a really important point. An important key to success is self-confidence, and the way we get to self-confidence is to be prepared. And even if you're unsure of what it is you want to do or need, by being very clear about how you're going to state that means that people see a confident person even if you are in a stage of transition. So, in order to get started, it's time to take action. And that means if somebody else isn't taking action, you need to take it. I mentioned earlier that an important element to the group is recognizing how to pay it forward. It really means helping others, and networking is more about what I can do for you than what you can do for me. It means that you're willing to invest in helping others succeed. Ultimately, that will pay off for you. So, we get started. And I want to find out from you, based on the information that you received today, we have a little poll again. I want to learn if this information has helped you get motivated. So, Daryl, there you go. I'd like you to take a look at the poll on your screen. And if you would, describe your motivation for taking action based on the information provided today. You're excited about starting a group, much more likely to do it. You have some reservations, but you'll try it, or you're reluctant. Oh, yay. Okay, I'm glad you guys will give it a try. Okay, we still have some folks that have some questions, and again, I mentioned that I'll be glad to stay online and answer those individually.
Yep.
If you'd like to, Daryl, were you about to speak?
I was just going to say, Sherry, we can just ask people. We only have a few people on board, so we can ask them to unmute their lines by asking *6, and
go
they
ahead.
can ask their questions.
As Daryl indicated, you can hit *6 on your phone and unmute your line, and I'm opening the floor up to questions right now. Is anybody having difficulty unmuting their line? Please go ahead and type a question.
All guests have been unmuted.
There you go. That's what we needed to do. Good job. Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of the information presented today? Hey, Paul, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Well, hello.
How are you?
It's good to see you, even if I'm not seeing you. I'm well, thank you. So I noticed on our last poll that there was someone who did have some reservations and questions, and I'm inviting you now to ask. Be glad to respond to any questions you have.
Sherry, there's a question in the chat pod.
It's not showing up on my screen. Maybe that's why I didn't say a response from Paul.
No, Sherry, there's a question in the chat pod.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing it, so sorry.
You're not seeing it?
Showing up on my screen, no.
Yeah, well, I can read it to you. It says,
Thank you.
you told us about. Can you see it now, Sherry?
Nope.
Okay. It says you told us about asking a question or maybe starting a conversation with people on LinkedIn. What could be a good conversation starter? Set or questions so that I am sure to get some good reply.
Oh, great question. One of the ways to help you determine what's of interest to any particular group is to look at any conversations that have the person has participated in the past, or another way is to look at other groups on LinkedIn that are around your topics. You can just type in a search for engineering groups and get a sense of what is on people's minds, what kinds of things are they discussing. So that's one way, just to get hints of things that are on people's minds. Another would be simply if you have a question about a process or about a skill that you think that you might want to build, or and are unsure of whether that's going to be of value to you. Those are questions that typically prompt a response. Did that help? And I'm sorry, I'm not seeing, there's no chat on my screen. I'm not sure what happened there.
So it has been terminated.
I'm sorry?
I think it's been terminated. The session is closed.
The session is closed?
Yeah.
So Daryl, is that true? I'm not seeing anything in chat, and I haven't throughout the entire presentation, so I'm not sure what happened.
Sherry, this is Paul. The stuff is still showing up.
Yeah.
But your message to me never showed up.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
Well, there you go. Okay, I thought you were ignoring me.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, I didn't think you would. So there's something funny with chat, because I emailed you right away when you first got online and said hi, and I didn't get a response, but I'm also not seeing anything from anybody. Daryl, I'm able to receive chat in the presenter's chat, but not in the regular one. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, I'll just read it to you again. The person has a follow-up question. He says, it says, so join the discussion effectively, and she has, is that right? I'm not quite sure what that means. But
yeah, if I can interpret that, join the discussion effectively, it means pay attention to what they're saying, pay attention to what is of interest, and be responsive to that, as opposed to posting a random thought that doesn't seem to be of interest to other people in the group. Does that answer the question better?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
great.
much.
Okay, does anyone else have a question you'd like to ask?